Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and welcome to some more StarCraft 2 Heart of the Swarm. Today I'm going to be analyzing a game of our hero Zerg, spawning in the bottom right corner of King Sejong Station Alley, I believe this map is called. It is going to be none other than the red Zerg player known as Tribe. And his opponent for this game is going to be none other than a really dirty player, you know, playing with the blue Protoss pieces. It's just gross. It's going to be none other than a guy named Dark Templar. Now, in this game, I'm going to take a look at the replay submitted by Tribe. He is a subscriber on Twitch TV, and this is the reason why I'm analyzing his game. So if you want me to analyze your game next time around, make sure to hit the subscribe button in the description below. It will actually, you know, give you a couple of chances, such as like the subscriber weekly coaching that I do and replay analysis and whatnot. And yeah, hopefully I'll be able to analyze your replay next time around. Now, I will get right off the bat telling you that this will indeed be a loss for Tribe. So Tribe is gonna go for an early pull right here, as you can see. A little bit interesting because this is an enormous map. But I'm gonna speed up the game for the time being because honestly, like this game, it all boils down to really one big moment where I think Tribe should have been ahead, where he really wasn't. And it comes down to the fact that Tribe is playing very fancy when, you know, he really doesn't have to. So right here you can actually see Dark Templar opening with a pylon on the low ground. He's wanting to expand normally. 9 pull on this map, not the smartest thing to do because it simply isn't very useful. And at this point, honestly, like Tribe is already pretty far behind. At this point, like the game, if this Protoss player would play perfect from here on out, there is absolutely no way that Tribe should be able to win this, but he decides to play this out smartly as well and go for the double expand right now. Now, it is important to realize that at this point, Tribe is in a deficit. Now, this is indeed going to be, I believe Tribe is Platinum League and Dark Templar is Diamond League, but whenever you're behind in these sort of situations after a failed early pull or after the Protoss got some aggression in the early part of the game, you need to get back ahead. Now, how do you get back ahead? Usually there are really two ways in order to do that. The first way to get back ahead after you've been behind, like Tribe was in this game, is to very greedily take another base and drone up as hard as humanly possible, or to actually know exactly what timing attack your opponent is going for and then just blow him out of the water and sort of just crush him and counterattack after that. Now, whenever you're behind and you want to get back into a game, you gotta keep in mind that these are really the only two options you got. Either you slam him back after beating his army very convincingly, or you actually go for another base and drone up as greedily as you possibly can. Now, I like the fact that Tribe is doing this, okay? Tribe is going for this super greedy droning right now, and it allows him to actually catch up in the work account and actually get slightly ahead right now, which is obviously the one thing that we do want to see. Now, we did also see some overload scouting. I didn't highlight that, but we did also see some overload scouting. It didn't catch a whole lot. But the one thing that I wanted to talk about is right around right here. Tribe knows that his opponent is moving out. He knows that this army is moving across the map. Now, obviously, we are aware that how many gateways are there even? There's only really like 2 gateways, I think. Yeah, no, maybe 3. Okay, there's 3 gateways out right now. How many is it actually? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3 gateways in total only. But this could have been a full-fledged 7 or 8 gate timing attack by Dark Templar. And honestly, I am a bit confused by the unit composition that Tribe has gone for. Like, unit compositions are standard for a reason, okay? Tribe so far has been very heavy on the Zergling count. He is gonna start a whole lot of roach, or like 3 roaches right now as well. But the one thing I'm very confused about is this building right here, okay? There's a Baneling nest. I know that Banelings are pretty damn amazing versus Protoss units when they go only really Zealot, but most of the time, especially after being behind in the early part of the game, you need to find a very cost-efficient army, okay? If you take a look at the units lost step so far, we're mostly gonna take a look at the resources lost. But have a look at this fight, okay? What happens with the resources lost? Tribe is gonna morph a whole lot of Banes right here. It's gonna morph a whole lot of them. But here is where the trading really happens. There's gonna be, sure, this army is gonna be cleaned up. But right now, we really did not trade efficiently at all. And at the same time, the third base of the Protoss is also going up. And we aren't really aware if this is a full-fledged all-in, or if the Protoss player is just gonna sit back. So, honestly, what I would have much rather had seen right here is that, let's go back a little bit, that all of these banelings that were being morphed right there, that those would have all been roaches. I personally would prefer roaches in pretty much every single situation right here, because the banelings aren't really helping out. Like, the banelings aren't necessary to kill this army at all. Maybe I would have even rather had this army just be pure Zergling to deal with all of this. This unit composition, I do not really like in Zerg vs Protoss, simply because of the fact that, yes, you can clean up timing attacks from your Protoss opponent, but if you don't slam them back and you don't go for a big counter attack afterwards, it becomes incredibly hard to actually win this fight. So right now there are 7 banelings morphing. 7 banelings is 175. It's 175. Wait, I actually never realized this. Now I'm thinking about it, a Zergling costs 25 minerals, meaning that a baneling costs 50 minerals and 25 gas. A roach, on the other hand, actually only costs 75 minerals and 25 gas. So, for every price of a baneling and a Zergling, so let's say you have 1 baneling and 1 Zergling right here, you could have had a roach out. I have actually never realized that at this point, but you could have at this point had 6, 7, like 8 roaches out, plus the couple that are in production right now. So at this point, when this fight happens, you could have had 11 roaches out, of which maybe like 2 would have died, maybe 3 if you're really bad luck. But honestly, like, I don't like the fact that roaches are not being really built right now, and banelings are the unit of choice. I would have much rather just seen a whole lot of roaches come out that we can actually use for counterattacks. So right now this fight is gonna be cleaned up, but it's not a very cost efficient fight at all, and it allows the Protoss player right now to go for this third base. So as far as unit competition, or as far as unit compositions go, I would never go for Roach Bane or Ling Bane, unless it's like a 7 gate off of 1 gas geyser from a Protoss player, and you know that the game is gonna end after you clean up that army. But right now the game is nowhere near over yet, and in the income tab, yes, we are still slightly ahead, but this is going to be very quickly equalized by the Protoss opponent. So that is the first thing I want to be talking about in this game. Also, a little bit later on in the game, we can actually skip forward a little bit later, right about here or so. The other unit composition that Tribe decides to go for is Roach Hydra Corruptor. And yes, this does seem to work out pretty decently at the start, but honestly, as many of you will know, I am not really a big fan of Corruptors. Now I have to say that once again, there isn't a huge committal to Corruptors in this army composition right now, and obviously the Protoss is also not microing very well, but I do not like the fact that the army compositions are first Zergling Baneling, and then Roach Hydra Corruptor. I would have much rather seen Roach Zergling, and then later on Roach Hydra Viper. Just the standard of the standard unit compositions, because those are just much more solid all around, in pretty much every single situation. So, I will stop complaining right now about the unit compositions, but Tribe, I would advise you to go for a standard unit composition with Roach Ling in the early part of the game, and later on you add on the Hydras, and a little bit later on you add on the Vipers. So you go for Roach Ling in the early part of the game, then Roach Hydra Viper in the end of the game, maybe with a couple of Zerglings running around. Okay, next up, the next thing that I want to be discussing is scouting. We're gonna go back right around the 6.5 minute mark is when we usually do overload scouting to figure out what our opponent is doing, okay? At this point, we need to know what the fuck a Protoss is up to. Because right now, if you take a look at the vision of Tribe, we know, okay, there is a Nexus going down. But besides that, there is really no vision whatsoever. Yes, there are Zerglings running around, but no, there's no vision at the third base. At this point, like, Tribe is sort of blind. So what you always want to try and do is set yourself up for scouting right between the 6 and the 7 minute mark. Now in this game, obviously everything the Protoss has been doing is a little bit delayed because of the 9 pool. So I personally would scout right around the 7 minute mark. And in a normal game, you want to scout right around the 6 minute mark. But let's have a look right now And when scouting is indeed gonna happen. We're still speeding it up right now. We're on ×8 speed, 7-minute mark. 7.5. 8 minutes. And now we finally start seeing a little something. But gotta keep in mind, if the Protoss player would have gone for a huge aggressive push, it would have already been at our front door. Like, this army would have already been about 5 times as big. If the Protoss player would have gone for like a 7 gate or an 8 gate, we would not have been able to tell that until much, much later. So I would advise you to always go for around a 7-minute overlord scout. I am aware, obviously, that in this game, it doesn't really matter because the Protoss wasn't going for that push. But just in case the Protoss does go for it all in off of 2 bases, you need to start doing this at pretty much every single game. So the first scouting clue that you have as a Protoss or as a Zerg player versus Protoss is right around the 6 to 6.5 to maybe 7-minute mark if you delayed your opponent in the early part of the game with ideally 2 overlords. 1 in the natural and 1 in the main base. And the very last timing clue and the timing that you can get from a Protoss player is right around the 9-minute mark. So let's jump to the 9-minute mark. Actually, let's speed it up a little bit. Right around the 9-minute mark to 9.5-minute mark is the absolute latest that we really see a Protoss take a 3rd base in a normal situation. You gotta keep in mind that because of the 9 point in the early part of the game, everything the Protoss is doing is maybe delayed by a minute or so, meaning that right around the 10 to 10.5-minute mark is going to be the latest that we really see a 3rd base from a Protoss player. You always want to have vision of the 3rd base of a Protoss in order to know whether or not you can make more drones or if you're gonna need to make units. Let's go to the point where the Protoss actually expands. So right now it's 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10.5 minutes, something like that. Let's say this overlord would have been scooted over right around here, just a little tiny bit. And we saw that right now, the Protoss is taking a 3rd base. At that point, we would have had way more options. We could have actually decided to overmake units, crush his army, and go for the counterattack, because we know that he is not having anything out on the map. Let's have a look at the unit tab. There is literally nothing. So if this overlord would have been scooted over slightly and we would have seen this 3rd base go up this late, we would have been able to just overmake a ton of units right now, make the roaches in the first place as well, make roach zergling, crush this army and go for a counterattack. Or what we could also do is in this situation, just barely clean up this army with roaches and zerglings, then take a 4th base and drone very greedily in order to get that advantage back in the game. So those are the real 2 scouting clues that you can have versus a Protoss. So first off, once again, right around the 6 to 6.5-minute mark in a normal game, but whenever you delay your opponent a little bit later, the double overlord scout ideally, and then right around the 9 and a 9.5-minute mark, you want to have a Zergling at the 3rd base of the Protoss in order to actually, you know, win a game pretty much with Protoss. So let's just speed through this replay once more and see the actual point where things start to go really bad. Like, so far it all seems okay, but the Protoss is gonna be able to catch up in economy because we did not see this 3rd base from happening. And right now the income is gonna be even. Let's have a look at what is gonna happen right here. The Protoss is just gonna max out an army. We're just gonna sit back, take a 4th base, and also somewhat make an army. Kill up a little bit of these Protoss units, but then we don't really drone up and we don't really have a big army either. And stuff just goes out of control. Now, I gotta admit, the Protoss micro right here is pretty poor. If you take a look at this fight, for example, this fight should go concisely into, or decisively in the Protoss' favor, but he messes up the force fields, and there's also no Guardian shield going down for whatever reason. He's giving away a free Colossus, and all in all, like, this fight should never have gone in the favor of the Zerg as it sort of went right there. So you gotta keep in mind that even though this might all look okay, the Protoss should have been decisively ahead right now. And I think this all comes back from the unit composition in the early part of the game, where we went for Roach, or what was it, Baneling in the early part of the game, and then transitioned into Roach Hydra Corruptor. I would have much rather seen Roach Zergling, and then later on Roach Hydra Viper, And in the later part of the game, you gotta keep in mind that the Protoss does always take a third base. Right around the 9 to 9.5, and maybe a little bit later if you manage to delay him. Once you know all of these timings and you figure out exactly what the Protoss player is up to, you can much easier decide whether or not you want to actually go for all of these Harvesters, and if you actually want to make army instead. Because whenever you make a couple of units and a couple of drones, and then a couple of units and then a couple of drones, and then a couple of units and then a couple of drones, you will inevitably start falling behind, which is exactly what we are seeing right now from Tribe. So Tribe is gonna go for one more desperate attempt to win. The Protoss player once again giving away a free army, which is very nice of him, but ultimately in the end this game is going to be in the Protoss' favor, and hopefully I was able right there to somewhat explain you why that was the case. So hopefully next time around this won't happen to Tribe anymore. If this replay analysis helped you out, let me know by hitting that like button below, and also let me know in the comment section how your Zerg vs Protoss game has gone after watching this video. I want to thank you guys all for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, and I will see you in the next video. Oh, 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 oh.